Hey everyone, it's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI, and I have Nathan with me from AdRoll. Hey Nathan.
Hey there everyone.
And we are going to be presenting how small businesses can profit with retargeting advertising. And before we get started, I did click record, so we are recording this presentation, and we will be sending a replay. Typically within about 24 hours, we'll get that replay to you along with the slides. So some housekeeping. If you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, there is a questions box. Should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Just type those questions in. I see Victor found it, as well as Cynthia. I always recommend you turn off distractions. You'll get the most out of these presentations if you're not also scrolling through your Facebook feed or checking email. And then finally, I want to see who's on the line today. So we have 2 polls. On your screen now, you should see a poll that says I am a, and some options: small business owner, marketer working for a small business, agency who serves small businesses, or agency serving all client sizes. And I see some answers coming in. Looks like half have voted, or no, we're up over 65% have voted. So I'll close this down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll actually share that so you can see who's on the line here. You can see 18% small business owners, 61% are marketers working for a small business, 8% agencies working for small businesses, and 13% agencies serving all client sizes. All right, one more poll and we will get moving here. Do you believe that machine learning can and is beneficial to local marketers? And almost 40% have voted here. Overwhelmingly have voted yes. And I will close that out. So 95% yes, 5% no. And we will get started here. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll talk about quickly the ugly truth about website traffic. We'll obviously cover what is retargeting and why you should use it. And I need to edit that slide. It should say the 5 types of retargeting every business should use. I originally created this with 4 types, and then AdRoll added a 5th type. So a little bonus there. We'll talk about how to measure retargeting success, and then we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So this is the first presentation. That is my mugshot there. I'm, again, Phil Frost from Main Street ROI. Our business provides digital marketing services like SEO, online advertising, including retargeting, and email marketing. And we also provide training like this training you're on today. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing. And my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And I will let Nathan take it away here with his own intro.
Thanks, Phil. Hey, everyone. Thanks for dialing in today. I'm Nathan Zaru. I'm head of SMB marketing at AdRoll. And I encourage you to check out adroll.com. We're here in San Francisco, offices all over the world. And we are a retargeting advertising solution. We've been around for about 10 years now, and we were actually started, which we'll talk more about later, we were started to help SMBs to bring the power of display retargeting to SMBs. And we'll talk more about how to do that today. We have, I think, 35,000 customers, but historically, hundreds of thousands of customers just like you. Thanks, Phil.
Yep. All right, so I'll get started, and then Nathan will take it away about midway through here. So the ugly truth about website traffic is that the majority of website visitors are simply not ready to buy when they're visiting your website. If you take a look at your conversion rates, typical conversion rates on, let's say, an e-commerce site are around 2%, maybe 1%. And then if you're doing more targeted advertising, you can get upwards of, let's say, 5% of in terms of lead gen. But what that means is that the vast majority of those visitors coming to your site, let's say 95 to even 99% of the visitors are going to your site and they're simply leaving without actually contacting you. They're not calling you, they're not completing any contact forms. And what that means, historically what that's meant is those people are just gone. And if you have no way to get back in touch with them, you don't have an email address, you don't have any contact info, you can't get them back into your sales funnel. So the solution, which I don't know when this came out, but it is a fairly recent technology, this concept of retargeting advertising. So the whole point of retargeting advertising is to be able to reach out and follow up with those prospects who have been to your site but didn't actually convert. They didn't call you, they didn't complete a form. So if you're new to retargeting, it's a fairly simple concept as far as we're targeting people who have already been to your site. So I copied this straight from the AdRoll website. We've got on the left here a customer who's visiting your website. Again, the vast majority are just simply not going to buy. They're not ready, or maybe they get interrupted. They leave, and then the picture on the right there is an ad that then brings them back to your site to actually complete that purchase. So again, we're targeting people who have already visited your website. So it's different from traditional advertising where you're just targeting based on demographics or geographic location or based on what they're searching online. We're not only using that, we're also limiting our ads to just the people who have been to your site. So here's how it works. If you are curious and you want to get a little technical, every browser uses what's called cookies, so browser cookies. Very similar if you use Google Analytics. Google Analytics relies on browser cookies. That's how they track the user behavior on your website. So retargeting relies on browser cookies. If you go to a website, your browser is then going to have a cookie that basically says, hey, you've been to that site. And that allows advertisers to target only people who have that cookie. So sounds technical, but at the end of the day, it's pretty straightforward. Common question that I hear is retargeting against privacy laws, because at the end of the day, we're now getting into ads that are following people around the internet. And the reality is that no personal identifiable information is shared. It's really like a on or off button. If you've been to the site, it says yes, and if you haven't been to the site, the cookie says no, or there is no cookie. So it's totally anonymous. We're not tracking actual personal information. However, with that said, you do need to be careful. In some industries, it's not allowed. For example, certain healthcare industries, definitely in let's say therapy or therapists, generally not going to be allowed to retarget, because those retargeting ads would then imply that that person has that particular ailment. So for most industries, not an issue, but there are some cases where it's not going to be allowed. And Nathan, I'll let you take it away as far as the types of ads that could be displayed.
Alrighty. Can you all see my screen?
I'll just keep it on my screen for this slide.
Alrighty, here we go. Thanks, Phil. Alrighty. To get started, I actually want to key off of what Phil mentioned earlier. And as you probably noticed with your Google Analytics or whatever you use for web analytics, measurement is that you have a conversion rate on your website. For everyone who comes to your website, you might have 1% or 2% of visitors convert, maybe 5% or 10% on a really high end. And the important fact is that what do you do with everyone else, right? The 90 or 95% plus of people who leave. That's what retargeting was created and designed to solve for. And the other important thing about that 95% is that not all visitors are created equally, right? What we can do with retargeting is understand the intent of different users according to the different browsing behaviors they have on their website. So I wanted to set the frame there before we jump into ad roll. And so ad roll specifically, we do display retargeting. What you see here is an assortment of various display ads that you can then use ad roll to send. We'll talk more about the ad units later, but the primary distinction is understanding retargeting. And when I say retargeting, I mean advertising with retargeting technology. Retargeting on Facebook or Instagram, which is like social media, versus around the internet, on the general web. So what happens is the distinction is there's different ad units for those placements. On social, they have different sizing than, for example, on the right-hand side, you see a typical banner ad. All right, next slide, please.
Nathan, I apologize. I will kick it back over to you.
I see.
Make you the presenter.
All right.
I didn't realize I was already on slide 12 there.
Alrighty. Am I presenting? No, I am not. Hang tight while we get this sorted.
If the handout doesn't work, I can always push the slides forward.
Oh, I got it. Here we go. I think we are.
Yep, there we go.
We are. Let's go full screen. Yeah. Can you see? I see. Hang tight, everyone. I'm going to make that look way better. Huh. Apologies, everyone, for the delay. Can I proceed as like this for now? My browser is being very funky.
Looks fine to me. I mean,
all right, if that's okay with seeing the preview on the left-hand side, then let's proceed. Alrighty. So first off, retargeting versus standard display. This is there's a bit of a history here that we can go over as to where banner ads came from and where they're going. The very first banner ad appeared in 1995, as the legend goes, and the click-through rate was something like 60%. Well, we know we don't have click-through rates like that anymore, because people, your customers, have become accustomed to seeing them, so they click less frequently. Now, how it works typically, or how it worked typically, was an advertiser like yourself would put together a request and information in terms of the type of people they're looking for, and then they would go to a publisher like Time or TechCrunch or the New York Times, and then they would have their business development people call the business development people and the salespeople at the publisher, and then they would basically exchange money, right? They would have an IO and then exchange money. Now, it sounds complicated because it is. It requires a lot of people, a lot of communication, and a lot of money, right? I mean, could you imagine how much it costs to advertise NewYorkTimes.com, right? Super high CPMs. So what came out of that is new technology called programmatic. Now, programmatic is started appearing on the scene in the mid 2000s, right? And it refers to buying and selling available ad space online. And if you think about it, so one way, what it's known for, what's known by nowadays, is called real-time bidding, right? And a better way to think about programmatic is automatic and intelligent. So instead of having those salespeople and business developers from your company and the publisher company, and then send each other the check, what happens is the entire system became democratized, and that's really important because by democratizing the system, the barrier to entry dropped significantly. So instead of a minimum ad buy of $10,000 or $100,000, you can now do $10 or $20. So all of a sudden, with real-time bidding and programmatic, advertising that used to be only available to the top tier companies became available to the masses. And with programmatic came the ability to do retargeting through website technology called the pixel. And the great thing about what real-time bidding did for marketers like you, marketers at small and medium-sized businesses, is it gave us unprecedented tracking that was never available before, right? And now this is specific to real-time bidding, but that's a umbrella term which includes retargeting. So again, retargeting is for advertising to people who already visited your website. Let's talk real quick about myths about retargeting, right? So to reiterate, retargeting is for people who already came to your website. And the great thing about what we've done over the past 10 years is we made it accessible to everyone. So now with retargeting, you can segment according to intent, and also you don't need big size lists anymore. So instead of targeting all of NewYorkTimes.com, you can target everyone who visited your shopping cart page, or for everyone who visited your shoes page if you sell shoes, right? So companies being too small and audiences too big isn't really a problem anymore. Likewise, with the democratization of programmatic ad buys, budgets aren't a barrier anymore. So we're going to talk next about how to make retargeting successful for your business with the 5 primary types. Now, we're going to be sending the presentations through later, so you can refer to this later. But there's 5 general types. There's display advertising, social media advertising, search advertising, mobile, and email. Email is also known as CRM. Now, display ads are what you see on TechCrunch.com, NewYorkTimes.com, Time.com. And social media is what you see across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, right? Now, with ad roll retargeting, you can do both, which is really great, as well as mobile and email. So the important thing to understand is that context is really important. We're going to walk through how to make retargeting successful for your business, but context of the customer, where they are in their journey and what they might be interested in, is most important. So, for example, let's say you sell shoes, right? Well, there's a big difference between men's shoes and women's shoes. With segmentation, you can segment your users according to people who are interested in men's shoes, people who are interested in women's shoes, and then serve ads accordingly. And you do that segmentation by tracking what pages on your website those visitors visited when they were browsing. Alrighty, this is the bread and butter of retargeting, display advertising. And to get started with display advertising, all you have to do is install a really basic line of code. You can do it yourself, or you can outsource it to your developer. Once you install that line of code on your website, make sure and do it on every page of your website. That line of code can then read all your visitors and what they do on your website. And then once you do that, you can then retarget them with the traditional ad units you know about. 300 by 250, 300 by 600, 728 by 90. That's how it works. Next up, search ads. Phil, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, I'll touch on this one. This is specific to Google AdWords. It's also known as RLSA, or remarketing lists for search ads. And this is really, if you're using Google AdWords right now and you're advertising with search campaigns where you're basically targeting people that are searching in Google for your products or services, it's really a no-brainer to layer on these RLSA targeting, and it's the same concept as what we were talking about before. So we're targeting people who have already been to your site, but now rather than targeting with display ads where they're surfing around online, we're going to target them when they are searching in Google. And the way it works is, again, they have been to your site, so they have a cookie, and now you can target people who have already been to your site with, let's say, a higher bid because you know they are more likely to turn into a customer. So you can bid a little bit more aggressively, get that top position, because generally speaking, your conversion rates will be higher and you'll be able to drive more conversions from those people who have already been to your site. You can also customize the ad copy. So Nathan was talking about, somebody buying shoes. So they were looking at Nike running shoes, and then they're on your site, and then they go to Google and start doing maybe some comparison shopping. They've already been to your site looking at Nike running shoes. You might custom tailor an ad based on that knowledge to those folks who have been to that page. So as far as why it works, again, you can customize your ad copy, you can bid more aggressively, and you can also expand to additional keywords. This can be a good tactic if you have a campaign where you've basically tested a lot of keywords, you know what works, what doesn't. Well, you could expand if you just target people who have already been to your site and start testing new keywords to see if those will convert, because they might not convert if they haven't been to your site before, but if they have been to your site, those might actually turn into profitable keywords that you could add to your account.
Yep.
Nathan, I'll kick it back to you.
Good thing. And we just got a question coming in from Cheryl. Nathan, what is the JavaScript to add to your site? That's a really good question, Cheryl. And there's kind of a few main components of retargeting, and JavaScript is one of them. And it sounds like a big scary term, but I promise you it's not. So your website is built upon some various levels of code that probably your developer knows all about. JavaScript is the technology we use at Adderall to basically track all your customers, or all your users, and what they do around your website. To integrate it, all your developer, this is part of the sign-up experience, by the way, so you can go through the Adderall.com sign-up flow and experience it for yourself. To integrate it, all you do is you copy over, you do Control-C, and then you Control-V, Control-Paste it right into your code, and then on your website. And once you do that, you're done, good to go. And I recommend checking out our materials at Adderall to learn more. Let's talk real quick about social ads, and actually, I think Phil mentioned bidding and performance, and something I forgot to mention and I want to bring up is that, so again, retargeting is about people who already visited your website. We talked about the myths. You don't need, there's no budget too small, there's no audience too small for retargeting, and a cool consequence of that is that you can expect retargeting to have higher performance than pretty much almost any other advertising channel, because you're retargeting people who have already expressed intent with your website and with your services and your products. The key is understanding segmentation, looking at people who, for example, visited 20 pages versus people who visited 1. Who would you like to bring back to your website? I'd rather bring someone back who is basically showed high intent by visiting many pages versus less. Alrighty, let's talk real quick about social. Social is a big term, and it's really expanding right now in the world of advertising, as you know. Facebook, but also Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest soon enough, right? For us, we have seen the highest performance and biggest gains come from Facebook and Instagram. So what you can do is you can bring the segmentation and targeting to the world of Facebook. So for example, you've seen Facebook ads before, you've seen them on your mobile app as well. This is the placements I'm talking about. And notice those ad sizes are very different from what you'd see on the web. When you start an account with AdRoll, we have something called Design Squad. It's a free service that makes your ads for you. And when you request that service, they will give you an ad size in every size available so that you can serve your ads on Facebook, Instagram, and the web without having to add anything to your process. Mobile. This is really critical. There's a technical level of understanding which we can talk about real quick, but retargeting has always worked off of cookies. So cookies are an invisible, I guess, code you could say your computer carries. Every time you visit a website, you get cookied. So basically a website drops a little piece of information upon your computer. Now, what that does is it allows people like you, advertisers or people with companies, to track your visitors as they move around your website when they're on their computer, their PC, for example. But what happens when that same visitor picks up their mobile phone? They pick up their mobile phone and it has a different device ID. So how do you retarget or advertise to customers that don't yet have the cookie? As it turns out, we've solved for that. It's a really simple solution to a really complicated problem. It's called the intent map. All you got to do is check a box and you have it. What we can do is called cross-device matching between someone who uses their laptop and someone who uses their mobile phone, so that, for example, when that same visitor who visited your website earlier on their PC is now on their mobile on Facebook or TechCrunch.com, now you can serve them an ad, bringing them back to your website. And of course, the other cool thing about mobile is that it has a way higher click-through rate than web and social traditionally. So with a well-placed and well-designed ad, you can expect to see higher performance on mobile in some cases. I also want to mention, by the way, that it's important to have a mobile-optimized website. If you don't know what that means, you should definitely talk to your developer about it. But increasingly, more people visit websites on their mobile than on PC. So you need to have your website ready and optimized for a mobile browsing experience. Alrighty. Email. This is a question I saw earlier about CRM retargeting. So we're going to talk about that right now. So we have a product called AdRoll Email that allows you to. So thus far we're talking about retargeting in a display advertising sense, sending someone an advertisement, whether they're on their PC, on a website, whether they're on Facebook, right? So AdRoll Email takes that functionality, takes that targeting ability, and brings it literally to their inbox. So your visitors can now see marketing emails in their Gmail. And the cool thing about that is that performance is significantly higher, because banner ads, people tend to develop banner blindness too, right? On the contrary, email, people are ready and waiting to receive emails and want to look at that information. So with AdRoll Email, you'll see open rates as high as 50 to 60% and click-through rates at 10 to 20%. That's at least 2 to 3 times the performance of an average email newsletter. And so what happens is, the way it works is, again, let's say you sell shoes, and a visitor to your website for whom you already have information for visits a sale webpage or a new design webpage, and they leave and they don't buy. We have the tools ready for you such that you can send them an email with that product they viewed inside their inbox, inviting them to come back and maybe make that purchase, which is why performance is typically so high. Right, and the key thing here is nurturing your CRM, customer relationship management. By collecting emails on your website, you're then able to use retargeting to send those same visitors emails in their inbox. Lastly, we can talk about these 3 things. Again, let's imagine a circumstance where you sell things online, shoes, right? The thing about that is you probably have a big catalog, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 products. So with dynamic creative, you're able to take your actual products and put them inside the banner unit. Even better, let's say there's a new shoe ABC, and a visitor visits your webpage to look at shoe ABC but doesn't buy. Then later, when they're on Facebook, you can retarget them with a banner ad that has shoe ABC right in there waiting for you. Really powerful stuff. For every customer we have that this is relevant to, we get them on it, because it's one of the highest performing things you can do in advertising. Right. Lastly, prospecting. So remember the core tenet I told you about? It's all about remarketing to people who have already visited your website. Well, prospecting has broken that barrier for our customers like you. In particular, with a new functionality on Facebook called lookalike audiences, you can have a really small audience and then implement the pixel so that we can learn about your visitors And with that, then we can then send you many more thousands of new visitors that you wouldn't have otherwise had. Very powerful tool. And cross-device we talked about briefly earlier. It's about connecting visitors across their various devices. Because how many computers do you have? You probably have a work, a personal, you probably have a mobile device, you might have an iPad, and then you might have a secondary device as well. So that could be as many as 4 to 5 devices per person. This is the trend nowadays, right? So by being able to connect those different devices and attribute them to the same user, you can do more efficient targeting. That is my bit so far. I've seen the questions come in. I think now is a great time to talk about some questions. All right. So I have one of my colleagues right here coming up with a bunch of questions, and I'm going to go through some lists. Please do chime in. We are reading the questions as they come in. I want to start with one. Okay. I see a question that reads, once you have a retargeted audience, do you see much success in leveraging things like Facebook lookalike audiences to expand to other customers who might respond to an ad at a higher rate than a general audience? Great question. Something I touched on just now. Retargeting, typically about advertising to customers and visitors who've already come to your website. Those people have really high intent, which is why we do retargeting in the first place. Now, lookalike audiences on Facebook is a new functionality they offer to bring net new visitors to your website. This is an extremely powerful tool because of their intelligent system to generate more relevant leads. So what I mean by that is often we see a small business like yourself come to AdRoll, and then after some amount of time you realize that you're limited to grow by your website traffic. Let's say you're getting 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 monthly uniques a month, right? Well, Facebook lookalike allows you to break that barrier. You implement Facebook lookalike, tens of thousands of people to your campaigns. The important thing to understand, though, and what I would recommend is to look at performance of prospecting and lookalike as different from retargeting, as different. If you combine them and look at performance in a mixed way, you're going to misattribute your results. So for retargeting, advertising to customers who already visited your website, look at the performance on that campaign as separate from lookalike, right? It is expected that lookalike click-through rates and performance rate will be slightly lower, but that's not the end game. The end game is to get them to your website, so then you can retarget them later. All right. Oh, wow, another good question. Is it still necessary to have a mobile optimized website if you also have a mobile application? This person says, I would assume yes. This is a really good question. So I spent a lot of time at an app company building apps for a few years. And you can get into a lot of nuances here. But let me ask you a question. So the question is, do you need an app? Do you need to mobile optimize if you have an app? And let's say you're an e-commerce website, right? And you sell shoes. And let's say there's a specific kind of shoe someone is searching for online. So let's say Google. Say, hey, show me new shoe ABC. And then sure enough, boom, your website pops up as the first search result for shoe ABC. What is the ideal customer experience there? Would they rather, A, click through to a website that already appears in Google, click through to a mobile optimized website, and then be able to see the information they want and then potentially check out mobily? Or B, instead of searching for the shoe, they have to search for your company's app in general, download it, install it, then go navigate to that shoe and then buy it. Now I'm painting perhaps a biased picture, but this illustrates the friction between mobile and web optimized. In general, always mobile optimized, always mobile optimized, because you can't beat the fact that more traffic than ever is on mobile. And you can't expect a customer to download an app every single time. There are some instances where if you're a mobile-first company, an app makes sense, right? That's a separate consultative session. But if you are truly a mobile-only company, then an app could make sense. Nowadays, there's some really cool innovations coming out of Android, which makes an instant app out of your mobile-optimized website. That's a discussion for a separate time. It is always mobile-optimized, unless you're specifically a mobile-first company. Thank you for that question. Okay.
Nathan,
go for it, Phil.
I see a great question here. I'd love you to clarify.
Please.
With CRM retargeting, I guess can you just take a step back and clarify how that works? Do you upload a list of emails
Yes.
into AdRoll? Is that how that works?
Good question. So how do you get these emails in the first place, right? If you're going to be retargeting in the inbox, how do you get these emails in the first place? Well, you could upload. So if you're using a CRM, you can just upload a huge list to AdRoll. You can do that, right? But you can also connect like your lead generation techniques. Like for example, if you're gathering emails on your blog or asking for a sign up to view your website, you can take those emails and feed it into AdRoll as well. So anywhere where you're gathering emails, you can upload to AdRoll. You just have to be using a CRM that we connect with. Good question.
And then I guess a follow-up to that would be when you upload the emails, so you had mentioned being able to email those customers after they've visited your site. Are you able to upload a list of emails and then show ads just to that list of emails?
Oh, great question. There's a technical answer, which is to say, okay, so the general question is, hey, you know what? Retargeting is great. I'm going to put the pixel on my website, and then for everyone who visits my website who shows intent, I'm going to, boom, hit them around the internet with ads, right? Sounds good. Retargeting works. We just talked about it for half an hour. Do that. Now there's a bigger question. Hey, you know what? I have 10,000 emails. Can I send them retargeting? And the answer is, well, yes. There are some. We have what's called CRM retargeting, which is a bigger category of AdRoll email. CRM retargeting requires what's called a match rate. And so what happens is we take the emails and we basically throw it against our backend systems, and we say how many of these can we retarget online. Those match rates differ depending on the quality of your list. Now I will say we keep everything anonymous, even though you have those emails. We cannot. No one knows who those people are around the internet. We keep everything anonymous. We were able to do this because we have one of the biggest data sets in the world, 1.2 billion profiles indexed. So yes, you can do that. It's called CRM retargeting. Sign up for AdRoll and check it out.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Definitely. I have a big list of questions here. I'm going to just pick a couple more. Hang tight. So I saw an interesting question that says, in your experience, does retargeting scale with audience size? For example, if I have 10,000 monthly uniques and retarget them, will I see a higher ROI than if I have 5,000? Good question. So does retargeting scale with audience size? So the question is, does the performance of retargeting get better as your audience grows? And that's a really good question because audience size is of paramount importance for retargeting. Now, it's true, we like to say that the sweet spot is like to start getting real performance gains is in the tens of thousands, like 5,000 to 10,000 visitors, right? But at 100,000, you're not going to get 10x better performance. That's not how it works. But you're able to do more sophisticated campaigns and targeting the bigger your audience size grows. So in general, well, I talked about segmentation earlier. And so when your list size is small, you don't want to segment too much because you don't have too many visitors to segment. But as your list size grows significantly, you can do more segmentation and then do more relevant advertising, which relates to higher performance gains. Good question. Hang tight. I'm going to pull up some more questions. Wow, good question. Okay, so I see. Would it still be valuable for a B2B company to implement retargeting on social and mobile, even if the vast majority of their site traffic and leads come from desktop? That is a good question because B2B is the next frontier. In fact, just in, I think next week, AdRoll is launching an entirely new suite of B2B products that I encourage you to check out. But I think the general principle here is B2B is all about generating leads and kind of high intent, hence it's kind of heavy interaction. Does it make sense to even send them a Facebook ad, when they're browsing their interests rather than at work ready to happen? And that entirely depends on your strategy, but I would advocate for creativity, right? We can get you your visitors wherever they are online, right? Sure, on their mobile on Facebook, they might not be ready to necessarily register, but you can definitely nurture them. You can definitely nurture them and send them content that makes them smile, right? Doesn't necessarily need to make them sign up for a lead right then, but getting your brand in front of your customers is always a valuable opportunity. So I believe we have time for one or two more questions, then I'm going to pass it back to Phil. So I see a technical question here I like, but we should definitely talk about it. And the question goes, can you talk about frequency? How often and how long should you serve a visitor with ads? Any keys to avoiding overexposure and making someone feel like they're being stalked? Okay, great question. So there's two key ideas there. Stalking, and is this creepy, which I'll talk about first, and then how long should you keep visitors inside of your duration windows is what we call them. So first of all, I want to talk about this earlier. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Can be creepy if done wrong, right? You've been stalked online by some company doing retargeting, and you see a product on in an ad way too much, right? Way too much. So it can be creepy if you over target, right? So we have what's called frequency caps. Frequency caps that roll. And you can set them. It's a day. It takes a day as parameters. You can do 7 days, 14 days, a month, a year, right? We, depending on performance, depending on what performance you're looking for, we recommend typically kicking visitors out of your segments after like 7 to 28 days, depending on performance. So typically less than a month. And along those lines, you also can exclude according to conversions. So you see it a lot you've experienced it yourself for retargeting not done right. So which is to say, you go onto shoes.com and you buy shoe ABC. Once you buy shoe ABC, you need to be excluded from any targeting henceforth. I'm sure you went on and you bought that shoe and you've seen that retargeting after the fact you bought it, right? So as an advertiser, it's yours to take the visitor, once they check out, once they buy, once they're done with the transaction, to take them and make a segment and exclude them. We typically exclude them for 3 to 6 months, depending on how frequently you expect them to buy. Then when you think it might be time for them to buy again, you basically take them out of your segment and then make them eligible. I believe now we're going to send it back to Phil. Phil, you're up.
All right, and I do want to clarify Sarah's question here. She said she's confused about how you can optimize search targeting in AdRoll. And I was specifically talking about Google AdWords and being able to do retargeting in a Google AdWords search campaign. So that would be outside of AdRoll. So correct. Apologies for the confusion there, Sarah. And then I will actually ask Nathan one last question here, and then we'll wrap it up. Because I saw a couple people ask the same question, which is basically, what is the minimum monthly cost for retargeting?
Wow, you know what? Thanks for bringing that up. I should have addressed it earlier. Minimum monthly cost for retargeting. You can spend as much or as little as you want, as I've indicated before. You can overspend and then target your customers too much. You can underspend and not target them enough. We have a general rule of thumb here, which is 10 to 20 cents per monthly unique. So for example, let's say you have a list size of 10,000 users. That means you can spend, with high performance, $1,000 to $2,000 a month on retargeting. Now again, what that means is if you spend less than that, you are likely not reaching them as frequently as would make sense from a performance perspective. And if you spend more than that, well, you might be oversaturating your users a little bit. So 10 to 20 cents per visitor, per user.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Nathan. And I want to thank the whole AdRoll team for organizing this. This was great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you all for dialing in. And I should also mention AdRoll is available on a self-service basis. All the things we talked about are baked into our product and our marketing. You can go sign up for a product for free. And we have a customer support line, delight@adroll.com, that's here to help with your questions.
All right, perfect. With that, I'm going to close it out. And I do encourage everyone to complete the brief survey at the end. You should get automatically redirected there. Would love to hear your feedback about this presentation and any ideas you have for future trainings. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Have a great week. Take care.